Okay, this is going to be our full recap for the Dr. Tufts cross-examination for day 10 in the Lindsay Clancy trial because there's a lot of vibes, passion to also convey, as well as very key points. Now, Dr. Tufts was the psychiatrist that treated Lindsay 14 different times. So let's set the tone for the vibe of the entire testimony because it was about 6 hours. And Dr. Tufts did come out a few times pretty confident in what she was saying and felt like she had a good hold of things. However, as it gradually went on, she didn't anticipate, I think, how much Kevin has had experience with being a defense attorney because he really did use her words against her. Now, there were even moments where she couldn't answer loudly. Like she physically did not want to answer because I think she either didn't know what the answer, like how to answer it and didn't have the knowledge, or she had a lot of gotcha moments, in my opinion. So one of the first things that the defense established was that every single appointment with Dr. Tufts had been through telehealth. She had never physically met Lindsay up until today. He then asks her how much experience she's had with postpartum women and depression because in her advertisement, it had said that she specializes and has an interest in postpartum. So she said that over the last 4 years of her residency, which she had only been an actual clinician for a month. So she started practicing independently August of 2022, and she treated Lindsay at the beginning of September of 2022. So there was a lot of debating going on because Kevin was trying to undermine her experience, and Dr. Tufts stood firm in the thousands of patients that she helped treat during her 4-year residency. So Tufts diagnosed Lindsay with generalized anxiety disorder on September 15th and prescribed Zoloft starting at 25 milligrams, which is the lowest dose. The defense focused on the fact that Lindsay had significant problems sleeping and asked why Zoloft was prescribed when insomnia can be a side effect on the black label. Tufts explained that Zoloft is just an effective first-line medication for anxiety and depression, and that side effects vary from person to person. So after 7 days, Lindsay said that Zoloft was making her feel awful and her sleep became worse. So Tufts told her to stop taking it, and she explained that 25 or 50 milligram dose wouldn't be harmful and it would be okay to not have to taper off. Then they really jumped into the black box label with SI thoughts, self-harm, in younger people. And there was an argument because Dr. Tufts had said how it's only a concern with people in their early 20s or late teens. And he had said that, is that still a risk though in some adults? And she said it's possible, but she didn't feel the need to bring it up. Another theme that we're going to see throughout all the doctor's testimony is that Lindsay was very hesitant to take medication and she was very afraid of the side effects of medication. So on October 20th, she also reported being paranoid about SI thoughts and not wanting to be alone. And there was quite a lot of repetitiveness in the questioning. I think Kevin Reddington was just really trying to drive it home that every time that she did acknowledge that she was having any sort of thoughts or coming close to these thoughts, that Tufts did acknowledge her concern and tried to give her hope by also incorporating talk therapy with her psychiatrist sessions. Okay, then they tried Ativan for Lindsay's anxiety, while Buspar and hydroxine were also introduced, but Tufts explained that these medications weren't necessarily intended to all be taken at the same time. So the defense brought up if those combinations of medications could worsen her symptoms of depression and cause other problems, but Dr. Tufts maintained that she was monitoring Lindsay closely and that at the time she just didn't recall seeing any significant worsening of symptoms. There was a lot of issue with the fact that in their system, in their medical system, there were boxes to check, but not anywhere that she could write or did write. I think there was a clarification that she could actually write additional notes, but in her notes, they were very, very short and just summarized. Kevin Reddington then asks if she'd be surprised if Lindsay actually called the self-harm hotline while she was being seen by Dr. Tufts. And she said, yeah, I would be surprised. And he said, okay, she actually did call it twice. And did you ask her at all if she did call the hotline after hearing about some thoughts of SI? And she had said, no, I just trust what she had said. She didn't give me any reason not to trust her. Basically just insinuating that she did not pry further into what Lindsay was feeling or doing. And then he went into a pretty good point where he's like, hey, is it pretty normal for some patients to sometimes minimize their symptoms? And they both agreed that yes, there are people that minimize it and are also quite embarrassed. And in her defense, she said a number of times that having SI thoughts doesn't automatically mean that someone needs to be hospitalized, because context matters. And if they didn't have a plan or an intention to act, then there wasn't much that they could do. Then December was a really uptick in how her symptoms got worse. So she had said to Dr. Tufts that she had significant problems with the medication trazodone, and that she tried Remeron and reported worsening depression and intrusive thoughts. She had tried Prozac, which had made her insomnia worse. So Lindsay said that she was panicking, feeling numb, experiencing intrusive thoughts, and describing a feeling like she was going to not be here anymore. So at the time, she denied actually having the thoughts, but in her notes, it said, quote, she was close to feeling that way. So then they asked what that even meant, and Tuff said that Lindsay described feeling hopeless. The defense asked, okay, well, at that point, what did you do? And she said, well, I just offered hope, and then also, suggested a outpatient program that she could attend, or a hospitalization program. And so on December 16th, Lindsay actually appeared like she was deteriorating significantly, and that she did report SI. So Dr. Tufts was asked an important follow-up question, whether Lindsay intended to hurt herself and whether she had a plan. And then Lindsay denied having either. She then asked if she had talked to Patrick, Lindsay's husband, and she had said, well, no, Patrick never called me, but he did attend one of Lindsay's appointments and really just voiced his concerns about what the medication was doing to his wife. Then she also was told by Lindsay that Lindsay's mom was coming in to move with them, and Kevin had asked, okay, well, did you follow up to see or talk to her parents or see how it was going? And she did ask a general idea of how it was going with speaking to Lindsay, but did not reach out to anybody else in Lindsay's life. Now, this next part of her testimony was quite critical because, and I'm not a medical expert, but if you are, maybe you can chime in. So she was not able to access records at different hospitals, and that she said, yeah, if I did request a HIPAA release, that I could obtain these records, but she didn't feel like she needed to or that she should. So Reddington really just highlighted that she had known that she had gone to other psychiatrists and also different hospitals, but she didn't have a full picture of everything that Lindsay was being treated for and just taking her word for it. They talked about the discussion of Dr. Tufts possibly saying that Lindsay was bipolar, but she did not see any manic episodes. And in order to diagnose someone with bipolar, Dr. Tufts herself would actually have to see some sort of manic episode happening on the call. So January 23rd, the day before the incident, was the last appointment that Lindsay had with Dr. Tufts. And she, at this point, was on amitriptyline. So she said that she was feeling numb for 17 days, including racing heart, and was struggling emotionally. So the defense simply asked Tufts if Lindsay was seeking help that day, and Tufts said yes. So she testified that she was thinking about how best to help Lindsay and decided that increasing the medication she was on made sense. And so Remington then asked a question like, did you think that increasing her medication pushed Lindsay over the edge? And Tufts said that she did not believe so, and that wrapped cross-examination. And at this point, Dr. Tufts was ready to get out of there. You could tell that she was clearly, visibly upset and bothered, and you could hear her deep breaths for, I would say, the last 2 hours.